Hi everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone's having a good Tuesday. So today we decided, just because of some of the, really excited about it, but there's a lot of research and articles coming out this week all about this myth that we've all been led to believe. Hold on one second, Mom's coming on. Hi.
Hey,
That was
what
quick.
what you talking about?
Nothing. That was really quick.
Oh, I did better this time. Ha.
But no, I was just saying, so we decided this week to do this talk about antidepressants and this myth that we've all been told about
Serotonin?
serotonin deficiency and that being the reason for this chemical imbalance in our brain and the reason why people are prescribed antidepressants that are supposed to correct this imbalance. So there's been a lot of articles coming out this last week that we've gotten our eyes on. Obviously, we've known and have known of research for decades that have been saying this, but it's nice to kind of be seeing it more in the mainstream the last couple of days and see people reposting and kind of people's antennas going up about this stuff, about what the reality of antidepressants really are and what is the research behind it and
Right.
why is it
No,
being so widely misused.
no, it's
Uh,
it's it's felt really good this week because this has been like a 5 year educational struggle. Just to help people understand like how it all actually works and what's
right.
really happening. So yeah, it's great.
Right. So I think so. Just to start, we wanted to give just a few like basic facts, I guess, because who doesn't love a good statistic? And I'm going to
Right.
pull up notes because this is very important to me um,
It gets
that
done right. I know.
I
Yeah.
can do. But so anyway, so a few statistics. One statistic we talked about before, but that we saw last year. So this was 2021. That 650,000 women were diagnosed with postpartum depression, and you'll hear us talk a lot about postpartum, since that is definitely one of the things that we like to focus on in our business. But 650,000 women were diagnosed with postpartum depression just
Yeah,
last
and
year.
but just take into account that's
Mhm.
just, let's say it again,
Postpartum.
just postpartum. We're not talking about all of the other women who were diagnosed with just straight up depression.
Right.
So it's huge numbers, huge numbers.
And then to go one step further, in the last decade, antidepressant use among women has increased from 13% to 18.8%. So huge increase. It's continuing to climb because I think this study stopped in 2018, 2019. So
Yeah,
that's still going up.
and it's
Um,
pre-pandemic, so it was
yeah,
before our last lovely 2.5 years of extra stress and fun.
well, yeah, we'll get into that too. Why? But and then the last one was really that women are 2 times as likely to be prescribed an antidepressant than men, and a lot of people are saying it's because women are the ones that go and seek out help. Now that might be true that we tend to want to solutions, maybe are more vocal about wanting solutions, but I actually disagree that it's because that we're seeing this like huge disparity in number, is because we're looking for help. I think it's because women, and I think any woman can testify to this, when you go to the doctor at some point in your life, you've been offered it, you've explained how you're feeling, and that's your solution.
Right.
you know Men, that's not how maybe they don't say how they're feeling, but I, I don't know. I mean, I talk to a lot of guys and I don't think they've ever been prescribed antidepressants like on their well visits
Right.
or in their yearly physicals. Yeah, it's something
Right.
that's consistently offered to us.
Right.
So I don't. Yeah,
Yeah, and we can talk a little bit about why that happens too. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like why that happens. But Yeah. So
So
basically what we're trying to say is that depression is like clearly on the rise.
it's on the rise. It's
Yep.
skewed towards women. The diagnosis is skewed towards women.
Yep.
And clearly, if now it's just a question that you can think about, but if we're saying that it's a chemical imbalance in the brain, that something just happens to you and now it's off, or you're born with some predisposition to depression or whatever it is, and now all of a sudden you're depressed and there's no rhyme or reason to it, it's just a chemical imbalance, and we're going to give you an antidepressant in order to correct the imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that it's climbing? Why aren't we seeing with the high use of antidepressants? Because there's a, like we said, there's a climbing rate of antidepressants as well
Mm-hmm.
being administered. Why are we not seeing a decline if we have this essentially this cure for depression to help depression? Why are we not seeing a decline in depression? Well,
clearly that question's been being asked for quite some time, because for
right.
a study to come out, it's taken 10 to 20 years to get that research completed and published.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So is it, yeah, and that's the thing. So it's like the real question is, so is what we have been told and conditioned to believe about depression, is that really the cause of depression? And that's the question.
Right.
Right. And there's a lot of people in our space that have been saying certain things about depression and the cause of depression for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to get into a little bit of what we believe the cause of depression is. But first we want to debunk the serotonin myth, or the chemical imbalance myth.
The serotonin deficiency myth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to link the articles that have come out this week in the caption to this live, so you guys can feel free to go read those yourselves. There's tons of other research and articles and things too, so if you want more, you can always ask, but we're just going to go dive into really the myth and why this doesn't make sense, why this serotonin deficiency doesn't make sense as an answer for the cause of depression. So the first one, the biggest one, is really that there have been zero studies linking low serotonin levels to depression. Never, ever, ever has there been a study. And one of these articles that we'll link confirms that again. They did a massive review and found zero
evidence that there's low or deficient in serotonin cause depression.
Right. And what we know about antidepressants is if they are supposedly supposed to fix this low serotonin that we have in our at least serotonin SSRIs, which are the most common antidepressants, which is the ones we're gonna talk about, because we could get into all of the other different ones, but we'll just tackle this one for today.
Just if you're not clear, like SSRI is a serotonin. The SSRI piece, that name in that, includes serotonin. I mean, that whole thing was developed for this serotonin deficiency that we all have if we are diagnosed with depression. Serotonin, selective serotonin,
reuptake.
Just saying, reuptake inhibitor.
So anyway, so if antidepressants are used to create, to create a more availability of serotonin in your brain, why is it that they are being prescribed for not only depression, they're being prescribed for arthritis, erectile dysfunction, migraines? Yeah. I mean, the list
There's
goes
a long
on.
list of things. Mm-hmm.
Which, how is it that then, if we're saying that,
serotonin is responsible for erectile dysfunction, migraines, arthritis, stomach pains. I mean, it's like the list is long,
right,
of the things that this magical pill can correct.
Right. It undermines what they're saying about what this prescription medication does. Now, the serotonin, it's really interesting because the serotonin theory or hypothesis what came onto the scenes in the 50s and 60s, really, when psychiatry needed a makeover. Okay, psychiatry was big. I mean, if you remember what you were taught, like lobotomies were still happening. And it was getting a really, really bad rap. And so there was very, very poorly hypothesized, like hypothesized,
Studies.
what's the word I'm thinking, studies.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, I mean, they've all been widely contradicted at this point, but,
Right.
and basically drug companies jumped on it because they saw an opening. They saw an industry that needed a makeover. They saw, a hypothesis that could work in their favor. And not to mention that we in this country have the ability to, or the pharmaceutical companies have the ability to advertise to the
direct market to consumers.
Yeah, so that doesn't happen in other countries. So here is a huge window for pharmaceutical companies to come in and take this and run with it. So now the information that we've been being fed over the last 40 years essentially has been antidepressants are chemical imbalances because of these theories, these badly tested hypotheses, poorly tested hypothesis. And drug companies have been pushing this narrative forward for decades. Yeah. And so that's why whenever you think depression, you're conditioned to think chemical imbalance. And some of you even knew the serotonin deficiency, but chemical imbalance. And that's because you've been marketed that way for decades. It's been marketed to you. And the science just is not there. And we can get into how drug companies skew their data and how they can make things look like they were effective when they're not, and they suppress data, and they do it all the time. And we won't get into that, but there's, so much research behind that. Now, talking about serotonin. So what is serotonin, right? Like what is this? So serotonin is actually, so think about this. Serotonin is actually a downer. It's not an upper. Okay. Serotonin is released in your body to counteract cortisol. So when you have a stress response, serotonin is part of that response, and it's released in order to calm you back down. So it is 100%. Go ahead.
A downer, yeah. No, I was just going to say, yeah, you're right. To calm you back down, but to calm you back down by reducing, it acts on your cortisol. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. To actually, to calm you back down. So now let's put our logical thinking cap on. So now,
wait, let me get it in.
Yeah. So now we're taking an antidepressant that's creating more available serotonin for us. We know that we don't necessarily have low serotonin levels, like that's not been proven as a cause of our depression. So now we have all this available serotonin. Well, serotonin's a downer. So, and what we do know based on studies, decades of studies, is that high serotonin levels in the brain are linked to all sorts of things: agitation, schizophrenia, autism, high blood pressure, insomnia, confusion, gut issues, all sorts of things. So now we're looking at, now is really when you get into, so what are the dangers and the side effects of these drugs that were being prescribed, which we are going to get into a little bit later, but we do want to take a pause and really get into what exactly is an SSRI. And we touched on it a little bit, but what exactly is an antidepressant? What is it supposedly doing?
Right. And I want to say, I'm just going to insert here too, like Kate mentioned, we'll have the links for the articles that we're kind of loosely referencing while we're on this live. But one of them actually did, it's very interesting. And it poses the question of maybe antidepressants are placebos with side effects. I mean, and so, if you're going to look at any of the information that we post after today, I mean, that might be one to start from, just to kind of get this idea of, what is really going on. I mean, I think it did a really good job. So we can move on to just the overall SSRI category.
Okay. Well, number one, they interfere with the brain's own mechanism for recovery, essentially. So this is what we were talking about with placebos, what you were just talking about. But there have been studies essentially that show people that receiving, I mean, there are, like you said, there are tons of studies. There are people receiving placebo antidepressants actually have similar results, or if not better results, than people that are taking the actual drug. So what they're seeing is that maybe in some cases, sure, maybe the antidepressants do have a positive effect, because we hear stories like that all the time. A lot of people who are pro antidepressants in the field use anecdotal studies or use anecdotal stories all the time to promote why antidepressants are actually work. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so if you think about, so if you think about what we were just talking about and saying that, you know, you have that serotonin is actually part of the stress response system, and it's going to downregulate your cortisol. So let's just suppose you're a person with very high cortisol rates. You run up here all the time, and now you're given something that is going to produce more of the substance that's going to calm that. So of course you're going to feel better. Of course you're going to have a short-term result. But the problem is that it is short-term. You end up going back, oh, that one's not really working anymore. Well, let's try a different one. Or let's up your dosage. Or let's do this to try and, but I think, I haven't studied it, but it's just kind of this thought in the back of my head that I wonder if that's why people feel this really quick, short-term relief when they start taking it. I mean, it's just a thought, just a theory.
Well, I mean, it's a logical. It's based on logic. But the issue with this, and then when you're talking about long-term use of an SSRI that makes the serotonin readily available for you, one thing we know is that like one single dose of an antidepressant can actually change your brain's architecture for like within 5 hours. Yeah. Okay. So it can start to change the pathways, the connectivity between how your brain is actually communicating.
Right.
So, and again, in just a second, we're going to touch on like why this is so dangerous for you and why the side effects really just outweigh the benefits of potentially taking it to feel short-term relief. And we've learned so much in the past, even just 5 years, about how the brain works. Like even the gut brain connectivity, we've learned like it's a part of the immune response, the lymphatic system. Like,
well, it has its own lymphatic system,
right?
Which we never.
Yeah. Right. We just learned this 5 years. I mean, within 5 years. So just the audacity that we have to say that this pill is going to fix something wrong with your brain when we don't even know all of the things that the brain is actually like response, or all the connectivity that the brain actually has to the body, is just like really ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. And so it's like we have not cracked the code on mental illness, and it's just insane to think that we have with these antidepressants.
Well, we haven't cracked the code with pharmaceuticals.
Well, yeah. So let's talk about why. I mean, this is the real truth about why antidepressants are so dangerous, and why, you know, honestly, like we totally understand the reason why people take them. And I think that there's, you know, women are preyed upon emotionally, and we want to feel better, and we want to be there for our kids. We want to show up for our family. Being depressed, I mean, I've experienced it. It is like, it is a never ending day, and it's horrible. It's a really, really hard place to be. And so when someone offers you something that's going to give you relief, and, you know, quick relief, it's very enticing. And so there's no,
well, and you're not,
well, I was just saying, there's no judgment to anybody that has taken them.
No.
That's not what we're saying. We're just talking from a standpoint of like, you know, we've been manipulated, we've been lied to, and to find long-term health, there are other solutions, and there's other ways that you can do this, and you can actually help you get off of off of this path. I'm actually very passionate about helping people get off of the path and not even get on the path. So,
Right. Yeah, both sides.
as we come in, yeah, so when we come into talking about the dangers, I just want to say that caveat that this isn't coming from a place of judgment. It's just we want people to know the truth that hasn't been shared.
Well, it's about
a long
exactly.
time.
It's like there's no true informed consent. Hey, this is going to make you feel better. Okay, I'm in a dark, deep place here where I want to feel better. Okay, great. I'm going to take it. First of all, you don't care. Like at that moment, it's like, okay, great. You're promising me something that's going to get me over the hump pretty quick here and I can feel a little bit more like myself. Great. But then they don't explain. There are no, other than the commercials that have the 44-second, oh, this may bring death, or, your eyeballs might fall out of your head, or blood might spurt out of your ears. I mean, all those little things that they say, that's it. That's all you ever get. You know what I mean? In the commercials.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if you take this drug, you may experience, call your doctor if you experience blah, blah, blah. And
Right.
it's like, there's nobody explains to you, I'm going to offer you this short-term solution, but here's the long-term piece that goes with it. Nobody tells you that. That's what I'm saying. It's more than lied to. It's insidious that we don't explain it.
Right.
So people can make a choice.
Right. So let's paint a picture about this. So let's say you're someone that suffers from social anxiety, right? And you have a couple glasses of wine before going to a party, and you instantly feel more calm, confident, all these things. You go into the party and you feel fine. So using logic, you could say that you have an alcohol deficiency based on its calming effect. And so you should continue to drink before going to parties, or you should just drink all the time because it'll make you feel better. Or anytime you have a symptom of anxiety, right? So I think I think we're marketed antidepressants the same way. We're not exactly sure how it all works, but hey, like if you're feeling depressed or anxious, like just take this. And because you feel better, it must be because there's a serotonin deficiency. Same thing, right?
Right.
But like we said, so now we have all this available serotonin. So once, let's say, high cortisol level, you take it, you feel better because serotonin kind of calms you down. But now you have all this available serotonin. So you start, you're taking it long term, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're past the 2-3 month mark. And if you guys remember, we talked about all of these side effects or all of these downstream effects of having too much available serotonin. So the side effects that we're seeing in long-term depression are pretty extreme. They're bad, right? We have low libido, sexual dysfunction, abdominal bleeding, insomnia, migraines, weight gain, blood sugar imbalances. This one is violent behavior because, like we said, we have high serotonin. This brings upon agitation, high levels of agitation. Mm-hmm. Anger, things like that. That is a downstream effect of high serotonin. We have more irrational suicidal behavior on depressions because, again, high serotonin available in the brain, it's a downer, not an upper. So now we have all this serotonin floating around. So what do you think is going to happen? This is why you see a lot of increase in suicides with people that have been using depression long term. This is why. I mean, if you guys have been confused, that doesn't make any sense. Why are people violent? Why do people have these irrational suicidal thoughts, behaviors? This is why. Okay, this is a long-term side effect, and this is one of the reasons why they're so dangerous. And one of the study, which I will link this one to, along with the other ones, because I think this is.
I was going to say, isn't there a long-term study that's continuing right now? Yeah.
I think it's still continuing, but they followed a group of people. I think it's been going on for, I don't even know, a decade or so.
Yeah, I think it's at least. I think it's over 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been following a large group of people taking antidepressants, and what it's shown even so far is cognitive impairments, more severe relapses, so more severe depression, And then a secondary diagnosis. So people taking antidepressants long term often are then diagnosed with bipolar, OCD, things like that. So there's always
Schizophrenia.
schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Again, side effects of high serotonin. So, or
Right.
not side effects. I keep saying side effects, but you know what I mean.
The effects, no side.
Effects of high serotonin. So that is, it's really interesting, and that study is going on, and I'll link that as well. But the other thing is that out of the 10 most violent inducing drugs, the top 5 are all antidepressants. Okay, so again, I hope we're starting to make some connections for you guys. Now, all of those things are horrible, but we actually have one that's like to us it's the most dangerous, and it's the worst of all of the side effects of long-term antidepressant use.
The effects of long-term depressant use. You say side
long-term
effects.
Oh, well, okay, the long-term effect. That's okay. Long-term antidepressant use is withdrawal.
It's very hard.
And here's why this is for me, and I mean this one is really it's a really hard thing to talk to people about that have been on it a really long time, because it's a really hard thing to like get hit with, and I think it's one of the most dangerous parts of all of this. But it's extremely, you can't just quit antidepressants cold turkey. Okay?
No.
It is
like the side effect from that is death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
cold turkey, no.
You can't. So the problem is that when you sign up to take an antidepressant, you could be signing up to be on medication for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Because, well, yeah, but I'm just saying, but because what we know is that, like we said earlier, one dose of antidepressants can change the architecture of your brain connectivity within 5 hours. Okay. Your brain and nervous system actually shifts into an abnormal state. And so to withdraw from that, it's extremely difficult, and you need that medication in order to sustain this new way you've rewired your brain and nervous system. So the reason why, I mean, people are on them long term, but it becomes, instead of a depression or a depressive state or episode, it becomes a consistent chronic state of depression, because now you've rewired your brain using these drugs for depression. So coming off of them,
it's difficult.
It's difficult. You have to literally rewire your brain again to come off of them.
I used to tell people when I saw patients that they were having the effects of the medication were so severe that it wasn't conducive for a healthy life, and so they'd want to come off of them. And I used to give them the analogy of, you get this pretty ball of yarn. It's like just this beautiful little ball. It's all wrapped together all beautifully, right? Then you start to unravel it, and eventually it becomes this big rat's nest on the floor. And it takes you a really long time to take that and make it that beautiful ball again. It's the same thing when you're coming off of these medications. You've kind of got this rat's nest going on, and the thread to pull out to make it functional again, to make it, this beautiful ball again, it's not something that it happens fast, and it does take a lot of work on the part of the person coming off the medication, as well as time. So it is important to realize that we are not sitting here saying, oh, these are bad, just go chuck them.
No.
It's a process. It's an absolute process to do that.
Yeah, please don't stop taking your medication. We're talking about I want to be responsible for that. Yeah. But basically what we're saying, one of the worst side effects, one of the worst effects of taking these drugs or deciding to get on an antidepressant at any point, is that you could end up with a permanent long-term disability. And living with depression is, I can't even imagine being stuck in that place, because like I said, I've been there, and never being able to come out of it. But that's the other thing, and this was really interesting. One of the studies that we'll link said this, and it really hit home for me. But it was like taking the antidepressant, right, and saying you have a chemical imbalance in your brain, and it's something you can't fix without medication. You're offering up this very pessimistic reality to somebody that they'll never recover,
Right.
and that they will be stuck with depression forever. That's so shitty. Sorry, but like, and I thought about that, and I was like that really hit home for me. Of like, this is why I am so passionate about getting the truth out about antidepressants, why I'm so passionate about telling people not to take antidepressants. And it's not because I lack empathy, or because I don't understand, or because I am judging, or because I want you to live with a mental, like with mental and emotional
difficulty,
you know, like, and I think that's always the perception, but it's like, no, it's because like I desperately want people to make full recoveries, because it's possible. It's 100% possible, not with antidepressants.
Yeah.
And that really gets us to like the meat of what we know and what we do and what we know is the truth. And this is key. One, depression we know is a symptom. It is not a diagnosis.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's important, like we said, it's important to validate the fact that it's extremely painful. It's an extremely painful symptom, but it is a natural adaptation to stress. So again, when I say that it's a natural, I'm not normalizing it, but depression comes from, it is a result of an imbalance in your nervous system, an imbalance in your fight or flight. It comes from being stuck in a chronic state of fight or flight. And now there is current studies to back me up when I say that, which is amazing. But yeah, so that's the thing. And so we reflexively return towards drugs, when really we actually have the ability to heal our nervous system naturally. And by turning to the drugs, we're robbing our bodies of that ability completely.
Right.
And I think about this so much with postpartum women, because I think they're one of the most vulnerable, especially new moms, the most vulnerable to taking it, because of you have a family and a new baby, and you don't know what's going on, and you don't know how to fix it, and your husband doesn't know how to fix, like, there's so many unanswered questions, and so new moms, I think, are really preyed upon. So I just want to, like, your body actually, if you were to do nothing about your depression, and which a lot of us can't live in that space, but if you were to do absolutely nothing, 70% of you would just resolve on its own, because it's a natural response, a natural adaptation to stress response. So that being said, I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about why stress is the cause of depression? And this answers the question at the beginning of why we're seeing an uptick in depression, because we are all living in chronic stress.
That's what you're saying. It's like, yeah, and especially like when you look at, like, I can't even imagine what the numbers are going to be coming out of this pandemic, coming out of the last 2.25 years, of what are these numbers going to be when we have literally been placed in a place of fight or flight. Mm-hmm. Our cortisol levels, especially in the United States, because I think it impacted us very greatly, maybe more so than other countries who don't have the long list of freedoms and things, and the abilities that we have to move about and do things. I think that here in this country, it was harder for us in some respects. But that cortisol being, the cortisol being your stress hormone, being released in this time of heavy stress. I mean, I just think we're going to see numbers of depression through the roof, like way higher than what we already saw. Mm-hmm.
And so getting into the reason why cortisol is the cause, right? So I thought you were going to answer that question, then you went on your
Oh,
tangent.
I'm sorry.
No,
That's
it's
all
fine.
right.
I can answer it, but I asked you.
I didn't. Okay. I didn't hear a question in there. I thought we were just chatting, so I apologize.
Well, I was just saying, like, now that we understand what we're saying, that stress, getting stuck in a constant state of fight or flight is the cause,
Right.
of
Right.
depression and anxiety. Now,
But you're just saying that like cortisol stripping our key nutrients and minerals, everything that we need in order for our brains to operate properly.
right,
I mean, that's kind
right,
of why we're ending up with this kind of a
right. It
issue.
steals from our sex hormones. It throws them out of balance. So that's what you're talking about: PMS, painful periods, low libido, acne, irritability. Cortisol then, depletes the body of nutrients and minerals that we need for good mental health, for optimal mental health.
Yeah.
And really,
Which,
well, I was just saying it.
No.
And stress isn't just the mental and emotional that we're all experiencing. It's blood sugar imbalances. It's inflammation. Right. It's lack of sleep.
It's a whole piece. Yeah, it all builds on each other to
right.
have the physical. It's the thing that we keep talking about too. Is like there's all of these physical effects that directly impact your mental state, how you emotionally can face the world, how you mentally face your day, and so having all of how cortisol impacts every single one of those things really makes a difference in your physical. So blood sugar, insulin, hormone. I mean, it's like there's an impact for every single hormone that we have.
Cortisol impacts every single hormone.
Cortisol, yeah, sorry. That's what I was saying. Yeah. Clearly, not clearly, but yes.
But that's, it's what we hope to get across to you guys is this is what we do. It's what we're very passionate about, specifically, and really improving hormonal, emotional, and mental health through regulating the cortisol dysregulation, through regulating your nervous system, for getting you guys out of fight or flight. And that really puts the pieces back together. It starts to put your hormones back into place. It starts to put your emotional, mental, health back into place. And that is really what we do and what we focus on. And if we can start to shift people's mindset from depression, anxiety, mental and emotional challenges are not chemical imbalances that just happen to you. If we can start to shift people into believing that they have control over what's going on, and that maybe it's your body's way of just telling you, like, hey, I'm stressed out. We need to correct some things.
Right.
We need to correct some imbalances. That's the message, and we want to guide people into that and into that direction. And especially, like I've said, with postpartum too, that's big for me because that's where I struggled. And so, moms, new moms, all moms, I mean, stress rules all when you're
I was going to say old moms too.
So it's important that we learn how to manage these things so that it doesn't happen, because it can happen at any birth, any kid, any time period. It can be a decade afterwards. Doesn't matter. But
Right.
Any closing remarks, comments?
No.
I can't really think of it.
I think we packed it all in. I think we did pretty good in 40 minutes. But it's just really, you're right. It's a shift. It's really just starting to think about the whole system and how it works together, and realize that a lot of our mental and emotional perspectives of how we see the world comes from a physical place of we call it disease in short, but it comes from a place of not having everything working optimally, everything working at its highest level for you, for you as an individual. And so it's just, really starting to understand how tightly tied physical health is to that mental emotional piece. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it.
Well, then
I think that's it. I think it's a wrap.
All right, guys. Well, like always, we'd love your feedback. Feel free to comment, ask questions, DM us. We will talk about this all day. So
we would talk about it all day. Also, on Thursday, We have Michelle from Breathe Pilates talking about Pilates, which is one of my favorite types of exercise. I like anything that's low impact and kind of and not some funky position like yoga, but something where like pretty much anybody can do it and feel good about it. But she's going to talk about like how it's good for everybody, but specifically what ways Pilates can help women. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So join us. Yeah. All right. Hope you guys all have a great Tuesday. Bye.
Bye.